I'd like to start by asking you a question about the methodological challenges of gathering data on Spanish football. It has long been a problem in the UK to gather quality financial information, although it has improved significantly over the last few years. What is the situation in Spain in terms of the quality of available financial data?
Well, we have to talk about two issues about this subject. One of them is that it is difficult to get the data, because even if most of the clubs in Spain are companies and they have the duty of set the annual accounts in the company's house, some of them they delay this duty, this obligation. But there are also some clubs that are not companies, so they don't have this kind of duty, and so the annual accounts are not public. So the only way to get it is to ask directly to the clubs. But the other problem is the quality of the information, and there is a great problem because most of them have adverse reports from the auditing companies. So the quality of the information that we get is not very good.
Thank you. Having read your presentation, I note that the financial situation in Spanish football is not healthy.
Yeah.
Could you elaborate on that, please?
Yeah. Well, I think that during the last times, football clubs in Spain has been each time managed in a more professional way. But the problem is that still now, most of them, they don't look for to keep the financial restrictions in order to make the clubs viable in the long term. So the problem is that even that they try to manage the clubs in a more professional way, they don't look at the finance sufficiently. Perhaps other fields like marketing, organization, they are very well developed, and so the clubs are getting more and more revenues, but the problem is that they don't have control on waste, mainly in players.
So basically, there's a fundamental problem in lack of control of financial costs.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And there's also a weakness in financial reporting.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. This is a tangential question, but I noted that in 2005, Real Madrid had a turnover of approximately 270 million euro, and Sevilla had a turnover of nearly 39 million euro.
Yeah.
Obviously, Seville have been very successful on the field of play at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But it does seem extraordinary that they were so successful given how low their financial turnover was compared to Real Madrid.
Yeah, but I think that Sevilla has a very good performance in last years on the pitch. But the problem is that perhaps they don't have the structure, the economic structure that Real Madrid has, and even the brand name that Real Madrid has. So, for example, the agreements of the deals with the sponsors are clearly lower than with Real Madrid. You know? And even Real Madrid has a stadium with 80,000 places. So, and Seville is a smaller population. So, it's not easy for getting more money between or among the middle class teams. They have well, even the agreements with the TV rights selling are not so clear to get the same amount of money.
To summarize, it's possible for, as you described them, the middle ranking teams to challenge from time to time with when they have a good manager or a strong team, but it's difficult for them to sustain that challenge because their economic infrastructure is underdeveloped.
Well, I think that it's not necessary because the ability to get for getting more revenues is lower than Real Madrid, but at the same time they have a bigger control on waste, and his policy on players has been brilliant, really brilliant. So they have got a lot of money for this policy. So they have a higher control on wages and salaries, and they have a very good policy of homegrown players and transfer players and all related with players, so they can get a higher profit.
So Sevilla, its success can in part be explained not just by having a great manager, but also by a strong focus on homegrown player development and shrewd transfer market activity.
Yeah.
Thank you. The particular focus of your presentation is on La Liga clubs which are relegated and then struggle to come back to be promoted again. In the UK, these clubs are referred to as yo-yo clubs. Yeah. Could you elaborate a little on how that particular phenomenon has manifested itself in Spain in the context of Celta Vigo?
Yeah. Well, I think that the problem of relegation in Spain, I think, is even worse than here in the United Kingdom. For example, here I think that there is what is called the golden parachute or something like that. So they can get some money from TV rights for afford the first, or at least the first season on second division, on the first division here. So, but in Spain, a club who is relegated next season is going to have a cut of at least 10 million euros in TV rights. So this is dramatically, it's dramatically. It's very dramatic. So they have to manage to try to go back as early as possible to the first division in order to maintain his own status, because if not, it's going to be a club with much less resources. So
the financial consequences of relegation in Spain are much more severe than they are in the UK?
Yeah, I think so, because, and this is also one of the main points, or one of the main difference between, I think, the UK football and the Spanish football is that the TV rights in Spain are dealt by each club individually. Yeah. There is no collective bargaining of TV rights. So if you are in a good position, you can get more money, but if not, it's very difficult.
If I were to summarize the key lessons of your presentation, I would say as follows. There are many examples of improving management practice in Spain, particularly in the marketing and promotion function compared to the UK. The game itself remains very attractive, as demonstrated by the high value of individual TV deals that are negotiated. However, the general quality of financial management is not as strong as it is in the UK and needs to be addressed, and the consequences of relegation are much more pronounced and therefore introduce a much higher level of instability into Spanish football. Given these conclusions, what recommendations would you make for improving the financial performance of Spanish football?
Well, Oh, it's difficult to say, but I think that most of the clubs would need to establish some kind of financial planning about, because, for example, when a club buy a player, they don't look at the money that is going to spend in the following years. They only are looking for the next season. But this is a compromise on a middle term. It's a middle term compromise. So this is difficult. So clubs need to have a financial planning, and they have to try to follow what they plan. Because other problem is that it's common that if the team is not performing well on the pitch, all the planning done at the beginning of the season are going to be forgotten. So, and they changed the coach, or they bought new players without looking at the financial consequences. So I think that financial planning could be a very important thing. And I think that one way to do it is working together with the financial institutions, because financial institutions are really worried because they are concentrating a lot of risk on clubs. So they ought to or should to help the clubs in this way.
Yes, I mean, I note from your presentation that most Spanish clubs are heavily indebted.
Yeah. But it's and most of them have several of them, they have even equity funding, negative equity funding. So it's incredible, and some of them should be in administration, but they always have the help of some local authorities or. But I think this, on the long term, is not good for football.
Thank you very much, Dr. Barajas, for a very insightful outline of the key points of your presentation. For those who want to read your analysis in more detail, the key readings are listed on the website for your presentation. Thank you very much.